Good morning, learners. Welcome to the lecture series. Today we have qualitative research. Under that, we are going to discuss nature and approaches of qualitative research. Let us start with nature of qualitative research. So as far as nature of qualitative research is concerned, qualitative research, it develops explanation of various social phenomena. So there are so many social phenomena, and qualitative research tries to develop explanation to these social phenomena. So the examples for social phenomena like migration, urbanization, fashion, poverty, unemployment, food security, educational disparity, etc., etc. So here, qualitative research is concerned with the social aspects of our world, and it tries to answer various questions, like it tries to answer the questions, or it tries to study the behavior, opinions, and attitudes. Even it tries to answer like how people are affected by the events going around them, and various culture and practices, and how these culture and practices have developed. So these are the questions, or these are the type of questions which are answered with the help of qualitative research. Moving ahead with approaches to qualitative research. So here methodological approaches are described in terms of the type of analysis they imply, as can be seen from the list of approaches here. Like we have 5 approaches here, like ethnography, grounded theory, IPA, that is interpretative phenomenological analysis. We have narrative analysis and case study method. We do have other methods, other approaches like discourse analysis, conversation analysis, but here we are going to discuss the major one. So let us start with ethnography. So the name itself indicates ethnography. So it deals with ethnicity, or it has something to do with the culture and race. This particular method is usually followed by anthropologists, or we can say that this method has a background in anthropology. The term means portrait of people, and here this method is usually used while a researcher is going for descriptive study and is trying to study culture and people. So we have cultural parameters, that means parameters which are common, like geography, social or familial, or shared experiences. So let us try to know where we can use and how we can use this particular approach. By taking an example from healthcare setting, a researcher may choose an ethnographic approach here. And here the researcher tries to learn about the prevailing culture, and it helps to understand about the state of patient care. That means if you want to study about patient care, you should also try to study about the prevailing culture. We have an example like culture prevailing in a hospital ward. The way staff habitually carry out their roles may contribute to errors or other factors affecting patient care. Let me add one more example to make it still easy. Like malaria. Malaria is a biological disease which is caused by mosquito bite. But here, though it seems biological, but the cause of the disease is rooted in the surrounding or in the environment. Suppose if a person is living in an area which is unhygienic, and lacks health and sanitation, no proper drainage facility, lot of stagnant water around, it leads to breeding of mosquitoes. As we say that stagnant water is the breeding place for the mosquitoes. So that is one. And here ethnography, it helps researcher to clarify the situation. It uncovers the practices, develop cultural awareness, sensitivity, and thereby delivers safer patient care. This particular method, it involves extensive fieldwork. Data can be collected by formal and informal interviewing. Interviews are conducted on several occasions, and here the researcher can have participant or non-participant observation. But here, thing to note or point to be noted is that the researcher attempts to interpret the data from the perspective of the participant. That means perspective of the participant is important. We do have challenges in this method. One of the challenge is difficulty in understanding the language or accent. Not only difficulty in understanding the language or accent, sometimes people speaking the same language, they mean differently. They mean differently. For instance, one of the authors, adolescent children, says that among some contemporary adolescent, the word dry is an insult. That means for some adolescent children, the word dry is an insult, right? So same word may have different meaning. But here, the thing which one can observe is good practice. So good practice would be to be transparent about the issue. We have second theory here, second approach. There is grounded approach or grounded theory, we say. So this method or this methodology is uh, originated from the work of Glasser and Strauss on the interaction between healthcare professionals and the dying patient. So here, Glasser and Strauss, they studied the healthcare professionals and the dying patients. Though it is phenomenological, that means here it tries to understand how participants make sense of their experiences. But this particular method, it goes beyond phenomenology because the explanation that emerge are used to develop new theories. So new theories are developed on the basis of this particular approach. We have an example to understand about grounded theory, like grief process. Like if the people or a person who is bereaved undergoes series of stages like denial, anger, acceptance, and resolution. So here, the experience of the participant is utilized to understand about a particular situation. Sometimes we say that an old patient is better than a new doctor. So experience does matters. We have some key features of grounded theory. Let us discuss one by one in brief. So this particular theory, it focuses on emergence. It focuses on emergence. That means here researchers start from a position where the researcher knows nothing about what they are studying. All concepts truly emerge from the data. So that means concepts are emerged from the data. That means there is no prior preconceptions. Like usually, suppose if you're going for quantitative research, we have hypothesis, right? In this particular method, the researcher should not have any preconception or hypothesis. So what is hypothesis? You can check my channel for in detailed discussion on hypothesis. Moving ahead with the second point or second key feature of grounded theory is theoretical sampling. So sampling is based on theoretically relevant construct. Example, in a study of patients, view of continuity of care. So here, suppose if you are studying about continuity of care, here the patients who visit the general practitioner, that is a GP, on regular basis, they are considered for the study to check continuity of care. But sometimes the researcher feel like let us include those who do not visit the general practitioner regularly. So on the basis of the emerging theory, the researcher can opt for or can include different samples to generate theory. Next, we have data collection and analysis proceed concurrently. That means as soon as the researcher collects the data, that means as soon as the researcher goes to the field, he or she collects the data. As soon as he or she collects the data, that is the researcher collects the data, the researcher must analyze the data on the same day. On the same day. Usually what we do, we collect the data all together, then we start analyzing. But here, data collection and analysis should go concurrently. That means it should go side by side. This method also applies constant comparison, and there is also theoretical sensitivity. There is also theoretical sensitivity. So as far as theoretical sensitivity is concerned, here the pure grounded research approach implies that you should not read any relevant literature before doing a research. That means you should not read relevant literature before going on the field. That means the researcher enters the field, the researcher enters the field completely naive. As we have already discussed in point number one, that the researcher should not have any preconception, should not have any hypothesis. But yes, the researcher can have objectives. So there's no reason to explore and test the pre-existing theory as long as you are sensitive to the possibility of emergent theory. Then we have IPA, that is interpretative phenomenological analysis. So this particular approach has got two components, that is participant making sense of their experience, and it also involves process of interpretation by the researcher. That means not only participant making sense of their experience, but also interpretation by the researcher is also involved. So it is interpretative, wherein recognizes negotiation between researcher and the research to produce an account of insider's perspective. So there is also a negotiation between the researcher and the research to have an insider's perspective. So data are accounts which researcher then code for emergent themes. So the researcher collects the data, then that data is coded to form emergent themes. Then the researcher looks for connections and construct higher order themes. We have an example like depersonalization. Depersonalization arises as a consequence of illness. And there's one more information, an added information regarding IPA, that IPA is often combined with constant comparison method, and it has got some elements of content analysis. Then next we have narrative analysis. This is my favorite one. The name itself answers the question. Here, narrative analysis has something to do with narratives or narration. So it focuses on people's narratives either about themselves or a set of events. So as you might have come across this particular method, like narratives are usually first type of text that individuals are exposed to as a child. Even if an individual struggles with reading lit literacy but have narrative literacy and can tell story of some kind, so that means this particular method can be used and information can be collected not only from the literate but even the illiterate, because illiterate are able to narrate, illiterate are also able to narrate their stories and experiences. So here, instead of looking for themes that emerge from an account, it concentrates on the sequential unfolding of someone's story. So there is an emphasis on employment and character. So here it concentrates on sequential unfolding of someone's story. That means sometimes we try to find the link between. Let me give an example. Suppose if I want to know about the life or the social environment of my father and my grandfather and also my great grandfather, I can follow or I can use this particular method where I may try to concentrate on sequential unfolding of the characters, right? So it has been used by feminist scholars to highlight traditional silenced voices. So traditionally, we come across narratives where uh, the women they were suppressed by the men. There used to be sort of discrimination against the women. So all these things we come to know by following or by using this particular method. So feminist scholars they too try to follow this method. But here, this method is time consuming. It is not like if you have time limitation, you should not go for this method because it is time consuming. Though it includes small number of cases, though it includes small number of cases, but it is time consuming because the researcher has to spend a lot of time there with the participant. The last one here in the approaches is case study method. So case study is a research relies on single case rather than population or sample. So here, this particular method is used not for the population or a sample. It studies a single case. A single case is unique within the social science for its focus of study on single entity. So focusing on a single entity is it's unique in social science. So this single entity can be a person, a group, organization, event, action, or situation. So we have popular fields which uses case study method like sociology, anthropology, psychology, education, political science, clinical science, social work, and administrative science. These are the fields which tries to use case study method. So here this particular method, case study method, it focuses on single case and tries to have detailed observation. It undergoes detailed observation over a long period of time. Something that cannot be done with large sample without costing a lot of money. That is here, this particular method, it not only focuses on a single case, but also it tries to observe the participant or the case for a long period of time. But on the contrary, it is cost effective. It is very cost effective. That means this method doesn't require a huge budget. In a limited budget also, a researcher can undertake this particular method. So a case is chosen for a specific reason rather than randomly. So there is no random selection of the case. It is chosen with a purpose. So as is usually done when conducting empirical research. So here a researcher uses the case study method to focus on the case that is exceptional. So exceptional cases are studied by using this particular method. Okay, so here uh, let me wind up with our today's discussion. So we are done with nature of qualitative research and also various approaches coming under qualitative research. So if you have any comments, any feedback, you can write in the comment box, and there is a scope for further discussion. So with this, I conclude. Thank you one and all.